And what is going on, everyone? And welcome to a special edition of Houston Texans football on a beautiful Monday here on Bleacher Report. My name is Ruben Calavia. You can find me dropping daily Houston Texans content on YouTube, 713 Houston Sportcast. My co host, my partner in crime, does Texans, Rockets, Astros at TheLead_Houston. Harley, how's it going?
I'm doing fine, man. We are live at 6 o'clock, and we are almost at that time to where the Houston Cougars will be taking care of business
Uh,
against them nasty ass Florida Gators. I can't
uh.
wait to see my Cougs do their thing tonight. So,
Who's house?
Natty on the line. Cougs, huh?
And shout out to Bleacher Report allowing us to come on here, talk Houston Texas football. Big shout out to the man upstairs, God. But we would be foolish not to just mention the comeback that this University of Houston Cougars basketball team, led by Kelvin Sampson, did against Duke, against the number one overall pick, Cooper Flag. Looked early in the first half, Harley. I mean, we're down 14. You're thinking, like man, it's always against Duke where the Cougars kind of fall flat, and you come back, you win, you have an insane last minute of the game, and now the
Mhm.
Houston Texans tonight are going up against the Florida Gators. What was funny, dude? At my job, I had someone pull up, full Florida Gators from Florida. They were just passing through Houston and had to let him know he's not welcome here in the H. But with that being said, Harley, we have a lot of big things going on this month. It's the Natty tonight. We got WrestleMania on 420
Mm,
on Easter,
mm.
and we got the NFL draft on the 24th. Round 1, 25. How are you feeling? Like what is your level of excitement for this draft?
Oh man, that's a great question. Uh, wow, I would say it's around. I mean, the draft is always exciting. You got four picks in the top 100. I'm gonna reserve myself and say 6.5. That's where
You
I'm
know,
gonna go.
yeah, I was there too because the previous two drafts, the Houston Texans were selected in the top five.
Yeah.
You're talking about one of these guys is going to be a Houston Texan, and they're going to be considered a franchise, a franchise cornerstone piece for you. I would say 6'2", but what I am in love with more is the unknown because I mean we've done a different mock draft every other day, and I mean we've talked about a different person going at pick 25. We talked about defensive tackle Walter Nolan. We talked about Josh Simmons. We talked about Kelvin Banks. We talked about Emeka Ibuka earlier in the draft process, and now he's looking like he is falling out of the first round. And I thought about today what you brought up, having the extra third round pick this year and that extra second round pick next year. It would not surprise me if, let's say, like a Mecca falls out of the first round. The Houston Texans don't try to go out there and make a move, but that's what I think. I'm digging the process. This draft is the unknown, and I really have no clue where I could pinpoint and say, yeah, I think they're going in that direction.
No, I can't even pinpoint a specific position. I mean, we would assume
Mhm.
offensive line is the deal to start at 25, but I mean, if there's somebody you like at 25 at wide receiver,
Mhm.
defensive tackle, like it would not entirely shock me if the Houston Texans say, you know what, we're gonna get XYZ instead of offensive line.
Mhm.
And again, with Nick Casario, just you can't ever predict what he's going to do. So the unknown here also, as much as it creates some whimsical fun in terms of hypotheticals and
Mhm.
various mock drafts that we'll continue doing, it also creates a little bit of fear as well.
And I was
What
just about to get to that.
Yeah, because you just don't know what the Texans are going to do. And you always got to realize in the back of your head, like, man, what if they don't go the route you really want them to? What if they strike out? Like that's always a fear as a fan. And considering some of the past offensive linemen drafted under Nick Caserio, it
Mhm.
creates some concern for Texans fans.
You know, I'm so happy you brought that up because not only is there an unknown factor in this draft, but you need this draft to work out because
Yeah.
you need to take advantage of these rookie contracts because you know exactly who is going to need a deal in the next upcoming years. You got Derek Stingley done. Great job. Now comes Will Anderson Jr., and you might want to pay him before you have to pay CJ Stroud. He's going to be a top five, paid defensive player, Harley, if he keeps on going
Mhm.
the rate he's going.
Yes.
He almost had 15 sacks this year. And then you got CJ Stroud. If you add on another 10-win season, I mean, I can't recall the last time a Houston Texans quarterback won 10 games in a row. And then I can't remember the last time. I don't know if it's ever happened that the Texans win three straight division championships, three straight AFC Souths. It sounds like we did, but if that does happen, CJ Stroud is going to be the highest paid player in the NFL.
I mean, he's
Quarterback.
going to be the highest paid regardless.
Yeah, so you need these rookie contracts to work for you, which is why there's an added importance that I also like. So not only do I not know what's going to go on, but whatever that happens, it needs to work. You need, I would say, at least two out of these top 100 picks to be day one impactful starters. Because last year, you got that in Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock. The year before that, I mean, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson Jr. I was watching Mina Kimes' video today,
Mhm.
and she did a mock draft with trades. At pick 25 for the Houston Texans, she went between Kelvin Banks Jr.
Mhm.
and Josh Connery Jr. Now, I am on the PFF network, so I could definitely bring up the draft profile on them. So give me 1 second. So according to PFF, Harley, Banks is a NFL caliber athlete at the tackle position whose movement skills and run blocking abilities give him positional versatility. His lack of arm length could hinder him at offensive tackle, but he projects as an impactful starter at either tackle or guard. A little bit more, a five-star recruit started at left tackle for Texas since his first true freshman season. He's on the smaller side, 6'5" for an NFL tackle. And once again, they bringing up his arm length. And someone who is recently getting a lot of love is Josh Connerly Jr. Now, now you had a former, not former, but current ESPN scout, Jordan Reed talk about Josh Connerly. So before I let you go off, here's what PFF has to say. Connery has very good movement skills for a player who also brings adequate size and plus length to the tackle position. His game can lack some anticipation and strength, but if he continues to improve in those areas, he holds the skill set to be a reliable NFL starter, one who can be impactful for a zone blocking scheme. He stands at 6'4", 315 pounds, and one thing that you love is he's only 21 years old. So Harley, round one, Kelvin Banks Jr., Josh Connerly Jr. It sounds like to me, would you rather have a good tackle in Josh Connerly Jr. or a really good guard in Kelvin Banks Jr.?
So I'll say this: um, Kelvin Banks is slated at tackle right now for the University of Texas, and when talking to Jordan Reed and asking him about Kelvin Banks potentially moving to guard,
Okay.
Jordan Reed basically dismissed the notion and
Mm,
said that he prefers offensive linemen to stay where they've been productive at, and he's never played guard before in college. He's only played
mm,
tackle, specifically left tackle. And, so that would be a transition. Now, yes, there's a lot of NFL scouts that wonder if he could move to guard because of his arm length, because of his height overall. But his productivity at the left tackle position is bar none. He was one of the best left tackles
mm,
in the nation when it comes to pressures against and sacks allowed. Kevin Banks Jr. did his job at UT. So, I mean, if he's there at 25, I would assume the Houston Texans could run up and get him.
Mm,
Josh Connerly Jr. is a great option as well. If Banks wasn't on the board, Jordan Reed said that he would take Banks over Josh Connerly Jr. But he did say when describing Josh Connerly, talked about a lot of potential, high ceiling, a bit of a project, but he said that every NFL scout that he's talked to in the scouting community, there's a lot of buzz around Josh Connerly's name. Could be somebody that maybe falls into the first round, even though he's slated as an early second round pick. He could bounce his way into the first round some way,
mm.
somehow. But given those two options, I'll go with what Jordan Reed said. He did say that Kelvin Banks would be the guy there if he was available at 25.
Now, if Josh Simmons is available and it's between him and Josh Connolly Jr., where are you going?
If it's between Josh Simmons and Josh Connerly,
Yes, sir. It's another tough
that's
one.
so it is very tough because there's so much to take into account with Josh Simmons with the injury. I had Joe DeLeon, who's a college football analyst, on my channel recently, and he talked about that Josh Simmons he thinks is still one of the best tackles in this draft and considers him so. And it's tough to really pass up. He said that he's not worried about his injury at
Mhm.
all. But that is a cause of concern still if you're any team trying to draft him. I know he looked fantastic at his pro day, but I would go with a safer option in Josh Connerly Jr., who's not that bad of a dude,
Okay.
damn good tackle as well. And you get the for sure factor. That for sure factor is he is healthy and he could start for you if it
Mhm.
happened to be tomorrow. He could start for you. Cam Robinson, all the tackles you got currently, they shouldn't scare you away from drafting a tackle if that's what the Texans actually try to do.
Are you starting Josh Connolly right away over Cam Robinson?
Depends who wins the competition battle,
Yeah,
right?
and
And
I mean,
D'Amico's
mm,
praising competition right now, and he's creating a competitive culture in the offensive line room. He's got that culture instilled on the defense. We've said it before. The offense didn't seem like they were swarmy enough
mhm,
compared to the defense. And a lot of fans agree to that notion, and that's why they kind of hit the reset button on the offensive line, gutting it out and trading away their best offensive lineman in Laramie Tunsil because of some of the intangibles that won't get talked about from some local media people. But it is what it is,
don't
Laramie
do that.
Tunsil, Laramie
Dun, dun,
Tunsil,
dun, dun.
Laramie Tunsil got traded for reasons that a lot of people don't want to say because they're friends with him, and it is what it is. But at the end of the day, Laramie Tunsil got traded. Oh, it wasn't because of a toxic culture or anything. Sure, we can report that all we want, but we can't sweep stuff under the rug either. Sooner or later, mom and dad's gonna open up the rug and they're gonna see your dirty dishes, and
Mm.
sooner or later, you're gonna get caught out. So that's what happened to Laramie Tunsil. It is what it is. Money wise as well too is also a factor. You mentioned paying C.J. Stroud. We've mentioned paying Waj. We've mentioned paying Jalen Petrie as well. Who else knows what
Yeah.
happens?
When did that noise started coming off around Jalen Petrie? And I saw our friend Jeremy Chuggs from Chance Sports talk about $10 million a year for Jalen Petrie. And I was like, God damn, I don't think, I think that's a little too steep right now. For a Jalen Petrie. But I mean, if I'm his agent, I'm talking about like look at the potential before he went out, of the year. So would you are you interested in bringing back Jalen Petrie? Because I think it was our friend Cody Johnson who said that like you could find his type of production with like someone else if you're playing that star, that cornerback, safety, linebacker role.
Yeah, it's tough to classify him in one position. If
Mhm.
I'm his
Yeah, name
agent,
three. Yeah.
exactly. Like if I'm his agent, I'm taking the Jimmy Graham route.
Okay.
And I know he hasn't been that productive. Okay, this is his first healthy season since his rookie year. And we know that well healthy. Okay, even though he got hurt, but we knew last year. it wasn't working for Jalen Petrie last year. It just wasn't pretty at times. This year, he got back acclimated to his role like he did at the University of Baylor, creating that Big 12 Defense Player of the Year award that he also deserved with the University of Baylor. Here now in Houston, D'Amico tries to do the same exact thing. Great results, right? It's tough to where to classify him, though. If
Mm,
I'm his agent, I'm going, yeah, is he a safety? No. Is he a cornerback? Yeah, maybe. Which one makes the most money? The cornerback.
mm,
So he's going to try to say, oh, well, he's a cornerback, even though he's a position that's not necessarily created yet in the NFL. There's teams that have the star position role,
mm,
but there's not a lot of admittance to that role thereof from the other 31 teams. Like there's other teams that have similar players like this, or they've tried to do similar positions
mm.
like this. It's confusing. I don't know what happens with Jalen Petrie. 10 million a year. Yeah, it's a little steep, but we saw how this defense was when he was working at all cylinders.
Yeah.
And him and Jimmy Ward could do the same role as well too. But Jimmy Ward's a lot older. Jalen Petrie's still, on the rookie deal. I believe it's last year on the rookie deal now. And it does create a little bit of concern. What do the Texans do there? I know they traded for CJ Gardner Johnson. I could believe that CJ Gardner Johnson could play that role as well too. He's pretty crafty, and when he's got his number in the box, and
Mhm.
he can play deep safety, he could play slot as well too. But there's guys in the draft that you could find if that happened to be, but I like what Petrie does. I like that he's a hometown guy, and I would love for the Texans to keep him.
No, I would love for that too. And okay. No, I was gonna bring up the fact that if Reverend Jordan gets, a contract extension, I was gonna say that he'll be the second player, in Nick Caserio's draft classes to get an extension. But Reverend Jordan did get a 1 year, $2 million contract extension. So let's not forget that. But yeah, Jalen Petrie, when he's healthy, when he's in this new star role, I absolutely love it. And you talk about just like his performances. I mean, how many defensive touchdowns did he have or did he create? And he's just, he's a high energy player. The crowd loves him. Uh, you might have to pay him that 10. You might have to. But
Smart agent.
I was watching another draft mock draft on ESPN, and it was from Mel Kiper and Phil Yates, and they talked about the second round Harley. And Mel Kiper said how he believes there could be 6 wide receivers gone in the first. I'm sorry, in the second round.
No.
Yeah, not in the first. I'm sorry, that was my fault.
Uh-huh.
Um, can you imagine? And at
Be
pick
shocked.
58 for the Houston Texans, he selected to us Kyle Williams from Washington State. Now let me get his stats here. But in 2024, he had 70 receptions for 1,196 yards and 14 touchdowns. Now, PFN, they did not create a draft profile for him. Let me bring it up on Pro Football Network, but yet they want us to pay for this draft content. This is sick, Harley. I'm I'm disgusted. So let me go to PFN and see what they have to say about him. So I'm already there. Shout out to the Wi-Fi for working. Kyle Williams, five 5'10", 190 pounds, and I believe the Texans met with Kyle Williams, and then I also think they met with Josh Connolly Jr. Not too long ago, or I think early in the process. But Kyle Williams is a fifth-year senior who played 3 seasons at UNLV before transferring to Washington State. He is a reliable target with good hands and an infinity for scoring touchdowns, having produced at an elite level in 2024 with over 1,100 yards and 70 catches. Williams is a fluid athlete who is quick in and out of breaks and a controlled route runner, demonstrating efficiency with his movements. He is an elite ball winning receiver who is strong at the catch point and can come up with catches even when covered. In addition, Williams is an above average after the catch threat who can make guys miss and create explosive plays. He has a good understanding of how to get open in zone coverage. It can create open windows for the quarterback. That sounds exactly what a Los Angeles Rams wide receiver does, Hardy. However, and this is where I get kind of scared. 5'10", 190. I love Tank Dell. We all love Tank Dell. But one of the concerns we had where he's small. And in the first two seasons of Tank Dell, season-ending injuries to the lower body. I I would be very cautious, and maybe this is just PTSD of selecting a wide receiver who is 5'10". Which is I also feel that way about Tez Johnson and
Man.
Jalen Noel. Those guys are all 5'10", but they're dogs on the field. So how can
Mhm.
you not look at them?
Yeah, so I'll say this. I mean, Tank Dell, whenever Tank Dell came out, he was about 5'8", 170.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
that is nowhere near Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams is 5'10", 190. The 20 pounds is a huge difference. The 2 inches of height
Mm,
is also a huge difference as well, too. Just creates a bigger body, So he's 5'10", 190. That doesn't create a lot of concern for me because the rest of the NFL, it's all about in the NFL wide receivers today, it's about short, shifty receivers that can see what they do with the ball in their hands, deep threats like Kyle Williams. One of the eye popping stats for me is he's a big play guy.
mm,
17 yards of reception in 2024,
mm,
14 touchdowns to go with it.
mm,
Kyle Williams just has one of the smoothest releases off the line of scrimmage. He is, to me, closer to the Egbuka, Matthew Golden
mm,
kind of receivers
mm,
than he is to day three. Like he's a very early day two guy for me. If he's there at 58, the Houston Texans should absolutely go get him. I think his stock is certainly rising the more he gets these visits, and he did visit with the Houston Texans. I'm getting the wrong guy mixed up. I keep confusing him. There's another guy that has a last name Williams that they talked
Oh,
to at the
it
Senior
wasn't
Bowl.
Kyle?
There was a different Williams that they talked
Okay.
to at the Senior Bowl, and I keep getting the two mixed up, but it wasn't him. So yeah, Tank Dell. I mean, they got him listed on the NFL as 5'10", 165.
Mm.
Tank Dell is about 5'8", 5'9", 170. That's it. So the difference in there, to me, I don't have a big problem with this. I think the Texans, if they see Kyle Williams to be that guy that fits with the Texans, fits their wide receiver room, him and Nick Haley, they could do a lot of great work together.
Mm. Third round, Harley. Well, yeah, great segue. Third round, Houston Texans have two picks, and they're like within 10 picks of each other. They're not using both of those third round picks, are they? Like,
Oh
like, like, like,
yeah.
like, come on. Like the fact that they're like it's maybe it's a different story if the two's like in the top half and the other two at the bottom half, but they're within 10 picks of each other. And when I was looking at, some of the mock drafts going on lately, there's guys like Derek Harmon falling in the second.
Mhm.
There's guys like Emeka Abuka falling in the second. We just talked about Kyle Williams. So,
Yeah,
like, realistically, like, if you had to give an answer tomorrow, is Nick Casario trading one of those thirds? Are you saying yes? Or are you saying no?
absolutely. I would.
Absolutely.
I would.
I would be shocked if
It,
we don't.
yeah, I would too. I'd be shocked if we stayed pat with the first four
Mhm.
picks in the draft, considering that you got two in the third, you got a second round next year. You got the 58 there. It's 23 spots between 25 all the way to 58. If the Texans see somebody like a Emeka Egbuka, let's say they grab themselves whatever offensive lineman in 25.
Mm.
But if Emeka Egbuka is there around the 40s, it would not shock me. It shouldn't shock any Texan fan if they went ahead and made that trade up. Hell, I could see that actually happening like 80% chance of that
Mm.
happening. If Ibuka is falling in this draft, he goes to day 2 into the second round, and you're looking at 37 not there, 38 still not announced. Like now you're going, okay, Ibuka's still available. Okay, let's use one of these third round picks. Let's attach it to 58 and let's trade up to go get ourselves a Mecha Ibuka. They could do that any which way possible. And I would be ecstatic if the Houston Texans left with the first 40 picks of the draft and they got themselves, let's say, Josh Connerly Jr. and Emeka Ibuka. Yeah, I'm pretty happy so far.
So in that scenario, they had him go 39 to the Bears. So that's right at
Yeah.
that 40 mark, exactly where you said. So you jump the Bears and maybe you go with the Patriots, who some people are predicting them to either take Travis Hunter. I've seen this, people even say, the wide receiver Tech McMillan out of Arizona. So maybe they don't need a receiver at 38. But
Sure.
hey, with Nick Casario, he has shown you time and time after again, if he wants his guy, he will get his guy. Now, hardly in the second round do they also mention that these tight ends could fly off the board too. And they have Elijah Arroyo out of Miami. They have Mason Taylor out of LSU and Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon being day 2 picks. And on the fringe, they have Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green, potentially late second, early third round pick. So if you had a choice between Elijah Arroyo or Mason Taylor, where are you leaning?
Man, that's tough. I like my Mason Taylor the most. I know the Houston Texans today
Mhm.
visited with Elijah Arroyo. They had a
Yep.
visit with him today, so definitely got to take into account that. But if you're just telling me to choose between prospects, I like Mason Taylor. I like the Hall of Fame bloodline that he has going through the veins. The son of Jason Taylor, his brother, the brother-in-law of Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas. So he's definitely worked with some Hall of Famers in his time as a young man, and he looked crisp as they could be route running wise as a tight
Mhm.
end. You can line him up anywhere at the tight end position. A growing blocker, somebody that could get better at the blocking position, at blocking for a tight end, excuse me. And then I mean, we can talk about his receiving so much. They showed him at the NFL Combine where you go straight down. They
Mhm.
just go straight down the 50 and they're catching passes from the left and the right. Mason Taylor never gets off that line. He stays
Mhm.
extremely straight and narrow down the line. You know, some guys get a little off that line a little bit. No, Mason Taylor, perfect down that drill. He's crisp. Like that to me is
Mhm.
the best way to describe him. He's a guy that is a safe pick and somebody that has great catching ability, can block well too, and somebody if you drafted him, I would be willing to move on from Dalton Schultz immediately.
So here's what they have to say. His best work comes as a receiver. He is smoother than he is explosive and twitchy out of his stance. He has some nuance to his route running, but lacks different making agility and flexibility for a full route tree. Better
Mm-hmm.
effective as a vertical receiver. His separation scores are good versus zone, but landed just a 29th percentile against single coverage. So, like you mentioned, they talk about his blocking technique. He said it can be good, but lacks true strength. And the only thing they said that he just needs to get bigger. Like he just needs like he needs to get into his grown man body. So Mason Taylor, come to Houston. We'll take you to Pluckers. We'll take you to Steak 48. We'll take you to Perry Steakhouse and we'll introduce you to some damn good tacos on Edgebrook, but we won't go there past 10:30 and we'll
Never.
get you those 20 pounds.
Oh, definitely. I know a great barbacoa spot, you know, in
Oh.
Pasadena. Definitely got a spot for him. But I have no worry about that
Mm.
because your offensive coordinator is a former tight ends coach and Nick Caley, who
Loves tight
was
ends.
exactly pause. Definitely somebody that has definitely someone that mentioned that as his answer at the press conference for
He
his
said
press
that.
conference. Said, "I love tight ends," and that was it. And then he repeated the same sentence again. And so Nick Caley definitely has a say in what happens with the tight end position. And I just think it's pretty interesting that we haven't heard Dalton Schultz's name thrown out a lot. We heard D'Amico Ryan's
Talk
rave.
about brethren.
Yeah, he raved about Brevin Jordan. He talked about Kate Stover, and then he ended it with one sentence about Dalton Schultz. So like the body language doesn't sound right there, but the Texans, I could see them grabbing themselves a young tight end.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for it for us tonight here in Houston. We got to get ready for this game tonight. University of Houston Cougars versus Florida Gators, national championship. Let's freaking go. Htown Tilbury drown Harley. Whoa. Double fist in there, buddy. With that being said, do me all a favor. If you are in the H and if you are going out tonight, please be safe. Don't drink and drive. Call an Uber. And for more Houston Texans content, you guys know what to do. Feel free to follow us for more. Go Houston. Have a real blessed day. Harley, whose house?
Coos house.